All right. And we are live again. The first round was bad. I want to put something better out there than that. But today, we have a good show. I think so. At least going to be doing some Detroit Lions talk, some more NFL talk from over the weekend. Going to be reviewing the play-in games from last night and previewing the NBA play-in games for tonight. And a lot of hockey stuff has happened over the last 2 days that I really like as that season wraps up Friday night postseason. Actually, the postseason schedule is not out yet, but I assume it starts next week. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it. Wednesday, April 12th. Yeah, that's today's date. We're going to start off with the Detroit Lions. The Lions last season was a tale of two teams. They started the year off 1-6. They were after their bye week. They were giving up 32.1 points per game during their first 7. But then the switch flipped. In their last 10, they gave up 20.2 points per game while having the 5th ranked scoring offense. That's highly impressive, especially for an extremely young team. A second year head coach in Dan Campbell, who everyone has loved from the get-go, but it's just highly impressive that they did that. Now, in the 2 games they lost in those last 10 was the Thanksgiving Day game versus the Bills, which they barely lost in, as if that moral victory counts for a victory, but there is a moral victory there for sure, considering the Lions are on Thanksgiving every year and most of the time suck. So, they ended up losing that one. But in, I believe it was the 3rd to last game of the year, the Lions did take a loss versus the Carolina Panthers, where very, 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 very uncharacteristically, they gave up 320 rushing yards. That was an insane performance from Carolina, but when you're trying to make a playoff push after starting 1-6, you can't do those uncharacteristic things and give up 37 points, 320 rushing yards. They ended up winning the last 2 games versus the Bears and the Packers. Packers in very dramatic fashion. That was a great game. But Lions ended up missing the playoffs. And the question on the screen is, are the Lions one step away? I don't really know one step away from what. I'd say from being a contender. But if they play the way they did those last 10 games, yeah, easily they're one step from being a contender from that point on. The first 7, bad. They were bad. They were horrible. So it depends what team shows up next season as the young team continues to develop. Jared Goff had a career year. Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator, came back. And they made some moves this free agency, so let's talk about it. Their passing defense, their defense in general needed help. They have a lot of young guys in the front 7, of course, but their secondary was bad. So let's talk about it. They brought in cornerback Cam Sutton from the Pittsburgh Steelers to a 3-year, $33 million contract. That's a great signing. Cam Sutton is still a younger guy. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I don't really have numbers to support this, but he's really good. So that was a really good pickup to bring in Cam Sutton. And they also brought in cornerback Emmanuel Mosley from the San Francisco 49ers. I believe he's more of a veteran. If I'm not mistaken, that may have been very wrong. But Emmanuel Mosley, very injury prone these last 2 years. I don't have the number on the top of my head for how many games he's played in the last 2 years, but I know it's in the single digits as he's been placed on injury reserve in back-to-back seasons. But that's a great pickup talent-wise, though, just if he can stay healthy. That would be fantastic. Some news that happened yesterday. They traded former third overall pick Jeff Okudah, cornerback, to the Atlanta Falcons for a 5th-round pick. That's fair. His cap hit from being the 3rd overall pick was high, and the market for Jeff Okudah was for sure small, considering that cap hit and considering not many teams could really use a cornerback that has potential, but it's not there right now at that price. At the price of his cap hit, not the price of the pick. But they got a 5th-round pick back. Not an impressive return, but the market was small. I'm very for the idea of just moving on. Good luck to you. But they brought in Cam Sutton and Emmanuel Mosley. Looking at this safety position, they added Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from that NFC Championship Super Bowl. Super Bowl Super Bowl participant team, the Philadelphia Eagles, bringing in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to a 1-year deal. Once again, a great pickup just to add talent to that secondary room. That's what they desperately need. Looking towards the draft, they have 9 total picks, 5 picks in the top 100, including picks 6 and 18 during the first round. By all means, keep 6. By all means, keep the 6th pick. You got so lucky having it. Incredibly lucky having that 6th pick. Draft, and I mean, in my opinion, you could go best player on the board, or you could go best cornerback on the board. I don't see Seattle picking corner. The other teams are going quarterback. I don't see, maybe Arizona. Nah, they're not picking a corner. You could go best corner on the board. That's a massive plus, and you still have pick 18. In my opinion, it would be cool if they traded that back to get a first-round pick next year because the Lions have a power right now that not many teams have or have had. We saw the Eagles do it last season when they had 3 first-round picks, but they were able to trade for a 2023, obviously this year's draft pick, and that ended up being the Saints. That ended up being the 10th pick. I'm a big fan of stretching that out. On the other hand, though, if you want to pick best player on the board or potentially best wide receiver on the board at pick 18 to play alongside Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think that would be fantastic too. The Lions have so much young talent, and they're looking to bring in more with 2 firsts and 2 seconds. Detroit, they're close. If they play the way they did those in those last 10, and they nail even 2 more draft picks, I think they're there to being a contender, which is wild to say. Who would have thought? It's wild to say. Another move they made this offseason, losing running back Jamal Williams, bringing in running back David Montgomery. I don't really have an opinion on that talent-wise. I just have an opinion on that, saying that blows because Jamal Williams was the personality, at least from the outsider fan's perspective of that Detroit Lions team, besides Dan Campbell. But he was the player's version of that. I thought that was sick. But he's gone. You brought in David Montgomery. That's a fair swap. But are the Lions one step away? If they nail 2 more draft picks and play like they did in those last 10, I don't see why not. That was not a video on the Lions. That was meant to be loose, meant to be kind of fun. But Lions looking pretty damn good. Moving forward to a team that's not looking pretty damn good, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and linebacker Devin White, entering the last year of his rookie deal, has requested a trade, and this is just what happens when you're in cap hell. You can't re-sign your guys, and the Buccaneers are going to be bad next year, or presumably they're going to be bad next year. So I don't blame Devin White for saying, well, you guys aren't going to pay me and we're not contending. Get me the hell out of Tampa Bay. I don't know what his market looks like, to be honest. Former 5th overall pick. I believe that was 2019 draft. Actually, that was 2019 draft, yeah. Former 5th overall pick. I don't know what his market looks like. I don't know how many teams are in the market to upgrade at linebacker right now. So, the market dictates the price. I feel like if a trade happens, that's a pretty big if, because Tampa could just keep him. They could just keep him. But that's a pretty big if. It depends what the market is, because if it's only 1 or 2 teams, you're not going to get much for him. That's what happened with Jalen Ramsey. That's what happened with, to a much smaller extent, Jeff Okudah. But that's what happened with Jalen Ramsey, where the market for him wasn't that big because of his cap hit. Devin White, it's more so the future contract. Who right now has the money in the next few years to give up a big contract to a linebacker? I don't know, but it is that question right there that does dictate that market. Who has money in future years and needs a linebacker now? That will dictate the market. It could be 5 teams, could be 1, I don't know. But Devin White, former 5th overall pick, wants out, and can't blame him. And also, may I say, Super Bowl winning linebacker. I can talk shit on Tampa for being in cap hell, but they won a Super Bowl, so you can't knock it. Moving forward, that is it for the football talk. We got the basketball talk. Last night, two play-in games were played. The first being the Hawks versus the Heat, where Atlanta dominated in the paint en route to a 116-105 win, which was a massive surprise. Not that they won, but that they dominated in the paint, because in the Heat versus Hawks the back-to-back series they had back in March, the Heat dominated the paint. And that was my point on Monday during the little preview, was that the Hawks, they don't have that paint presence. The Heat do. I think the Heat I thought the Heat would win because of that. Turns out the Hawks did have that paint presence, and that paint presence was Clint Capella, putting up a funny Dennis Rodman-esque stat line of 4 points and 21 rebounds as the Hawks dominated the total rebound, offensive rebound, points and paints, and blocks categories. Looking at the offensive rebounds being in my opinion, the most impressive margin. The Hawks won that battle 22-6. The total rebound margin 63-49, and might as well mention it, points in paint margin was 64-46. And Trae Young said post-game, I don't have the exact quote, this is just a little paraphrase, that being physical was a part of their game plan. They wanted to be in the paint. They wanted to be rough. And they did it. It worked. As the Hawks will now play, Boston in the first round. That's a rough series. And the Heat will be playing the winner of Toronto-Chicago tonight, which I will be previewing here in a minute. But yeah, very, very surprising game. I'm not shocked that the Hawks won. I'm shocked they won the way they won. And Trae Young's glasses post-game look cool as shit. Moving forward to the nightcap in the NBA last night. Los Angeles Lakers, obviously, Showtime, LeBron, AD. It looked like they were going to lose. I went to sleep when they were down double digits. It was like midnight. I was like, I'm not doing this. Then I wake up, and it turns out the Timberwolves crumbled in the fourth quarter, not scoring a single point, staying at 95 points from 6:01 left in the fourth to 1 second left. And during that time, the Lakers surged back. And okay, I'm gonna lead in with this. That pass Bron had to Dennis Schroeder. Obviously, I knew the result this morning, but it still gave me PTSD to when LeBron passed it to Danny Green in Game 5 of the 2020 Bubble Finals to win the game, and then he bricked it. That gave me PTSD when Bron put his faith in another player at the three-point line. That hurt my heart, but ended up working out. Dennis Schroeder hit that corner three, and then the play that Minnesota ran at the end of regulation there. That was a phenomenal play. Mike Conley was wide open. It was a great draw up. He bricked the three, and then what a bullshit call. That was a bad call. Let's just call it what it is. I get it. It's the Zaza Pachulia rule. I'm a biased Lakers fan. I'll call it what it is, but that was a bullshit call to give them overtime. I'm not saying the refs rigged it. That's retarded when people say that the refs rig sports. Shut up. But yeah, that was a shitty call. Timberwolves, though, crumbled with Anthony Edwards, the star player, alongside Karl Anthony Towns with Rudy Gobert out, had his worst shooting percentage all season at 17.6%, shooting 3 for 17 from the field. Lakers go on to play the Grizzlies in a 7-game series, as the Timberwolves will be playing the winner of Pelicans Thunder tonight. Actually, well, they won't be playing tonight, but you get what I'm saying. Moving forward to the preview segment of the NBA play-in, we got the 9-seed Raptors facing up against the 10-seeded Bulls. Now, I will be doing the same thing I did on Monday. If you don't know what that is, I'm comparing the post-All-Star break team the team averages, the team stats averages, to their most recent to their most recent head-to-head matchups, if that makes sense. It's kind of hard for me to say because it's a lot of words. There's a lot. But yeah, Toronto won their most recent head-to-head matchup 104-98 in their only head-to-head matchup post All-Star break. And there were only two 20-point scores during that game. There was no key injury in play as well, so no real. I would say that these numbers do matter. So yeah, for Chicago, comparing their post All-Star break averages to that one game, they scored 15 less points than they usually do, as they averaged 113 in the last 2 months to obviously 98 that last game, on 15 less attempted field goals and 8 more turnovers than they usually would. Chicago just had a bad offensive night. Obviously, when you fail to reach 100 points, you have a bad offensive night. Yeah, the Bulls, just a bad offensive night. I'll say it again. Just a bad one. And looking at the Raptors, not far differently from the point standpoint, they scored 7 less points than they usually would in the last 2 months, on actually 6% better from the field shooting wise, and 6 more offensive rebounds than usual. So who do I think is going to win? I think it's going to be more low scoring considering how this last game went. Who do I think is going to win? I don't really know because I did not watch these 2 games all season, but there are some interesting names. Obviously, the Bulls, Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, and DeMar DeRozan, they're all on that team, and the bald GOAT, Alex Caruso. Raptors obviously got Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, which they declined 3 first-round picks for him. That shows the value of a first-round pick dropping. But give me Toronto. I like Toronto. There really is no other reason for that. I think that they got it. There's no other reason than Chicago had a bad offensive showing the last time the last time that these 2 teams matched up. It depends on DeMar and Zach LaVine. They have the star power advantage. Just if one of them takes over, they'll win. But we'll see. I'm excited to watch the game because I have not watched these 2 teams all season, and what better way to judge NBA basketball than one game? That's some expert analysis, as the winner of this game will play Miami in hopes of getting the 8th seed and playing the Milwaukee Bucks. Moving forward to the Western Conference, the 9:30 game tonight, the preview. Now, the preview numbers are flawed for this one. The whole post-All-Star break, yada yada stuff. Oklahoma City, in their last matchup in February, won the game 110-96. But the Pelicans were without Brandon Ingram in that time. And Brandon Ingram has been incredible over this last month. So these numbers are flawed. I'm still going to say them because I do believe they hold some value. But it's an entirely different game with Brandon Ingram in. And then also, may I add, in that 110-96 game, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander dropped 35 points. So looking at the admittedly flawed numbers for the Pelicans, as they'll have their best offensive piece back in, they scored 17 less points than they usually would in the post All-Star break, shot 6% worse from the field, and had 8 more turnovers than they usually would. And when looking at the Thunder's perspective, although they scored 110 with Shai having a monster game, as he had many of those this season, they would actually score 6 less points than they usually would, have 7 less assists than they usually would, 5 less rebounds than they usually would, but they would have 3 more steals than they usually would. So, the Thunder, yeah, they had worse stats too, but they ended up winning by 14 with Shai having a monster game. I'll say it again, those numbers are very flawed because Brandon Ingram is a game changer. He's back. He's in. I wish the Lakers still had him, but Anthony Davis is so worth it. But, who do I think is going to win this one? You got to take the Pelicans. Once again, I'm not a big basketball expert, all right? But the Pelicans got that veteran feel. They got Jonas Valanciunas. They got CJ McCollum. Brandon Ingram's been in the league for like 7 years. He's not a young guy now. As opposed to the Thunder, who have like all young guys, ultra talented. They have a really good core, and they got Chet Holmgren, who still hasn't played. This is a funny thing. Chet Holmgren put on no muscle from last season. Like, that guy, dude, Braun might kill him again. but that has no relevance to what I'm talking about right here. Thunder, incredibly young team. They got Shea as their superstar. They got the two Jalen Williams. They got Josh Giddey. They got Lou Dort, and like 100 first-round picks and Chet Holmgren still chilling. Who do I think wins? Yeah, dude, Pelicans easily. Yeah, and the winner of this game will play Minnesota, and that game is do or die to get the 8 seed to play the Nuggets. The play-in format's a little confusing when you first try to remember it, but then it gets a lot simpler when you say it for the billionth time on a camera. So yeah, that's it for NFL and NBA talk. Give me the Toronto Raptors and Pelicans tonight, just the higher seeds. I rock with it. I don't have much more than that. That's basketball analysis nowadays. Moving on. NHL, my favorite thing, the stuff I like to talk about on here the most. It's a fun 2 days as the season ends on Friday night. It was a really fun 2 days. I'm a Maple Leafs fan myself. They had a very, very, very impressive back-to-back with incredible goalie play in their 2-1 overtime win versus Florida and incredible goalie play in their 4-3 win over the Tampa Bay Lightning, who they will be facing off against in the playoffs next week. Ilya Samsonov, the 1-year contract man, the man that was brought in to be the 1B goalie, had 45 saves on a .978 save percentage versus the Florida Panthers. He was the guy that saved the game for us because in OT, Florida had 7 more scoring chances. They had 5 more scoring chances than Toronto did. They had 7 total. Toronto had 2, as Toronto would get outshot in the game 46-25. Ilya Samsonov, what a night. But obviously, he can't play back-to-back. That's unheard of, or that's highly dangerous as you're trying to protect players. And in the Florida game, the entire core 4 of Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, and William Nylander all would play versus Tampa in the second night of a back-to-back. Entirely different. Mitch Marner, out. Austin Matthews, out. Actually, also Matthews during the Florida game would get his 40th goal this year. That's pretty damn cool. But Matthews, Marner, both out. A pretty key defenseman in Mark Giordano, out. And then Toronto had a goalie in net, Joseph Wool, making his 6th start this season. I've been preaching him since I started doing this. That's pretty cool. And he had an incredible night, also putting up 45 saves versus Tampa on a .938 save percentage as he keeps on winning. Joseph Wool is a dog. But versus Tampa, highly physical game. Highly physical game as Toronto got outshot 48-24. But there were 52 total penalty minutes between these two teams, as Tampa's trying to assert that physicality over Toronto, but Toronto, the entire trade deadline was about bringing in the physicality, so they would try to match them as best as they could. And Toronto would end up winning without their stars, their main goaltender, or a key defenseman, as William Nylander and Ryan O'Reilly were stars of the night. Nylander putting up 1 goal and 2 assists, and Ryan O'Reilly in his 4th game back now put up 1 goal and 1 assist, knocking Tampa to a 4-game losing streak. Tampa had a shot there had a good chance there at the end to tie it up and send the game to OT at all tied up at 4 with a 6-4 man advantage, but it just did not work out for him as Vasilevsky was in net instead of Brian Elliott, as these two teams will face off soon. And I am very excited for it because that's going to be a great series. Moving forward, talking more about the playoffs, the East wildcard race. I've been using the same format graphic every single show. It's sad to hear that the end is near. Florida is officially in the playoffs. We do not know which seed quite yet, but they are officially clinched a seed. They're in. As of right now, the Islanders are in at 91 points despite losing on Monday night to I forget who. But last night, Pittsburgh with a chance to take the lead over the Islanders. We're playing the Chicago Blackhawks, tanking for the number 1 pick, and they lost 5-2, 5-3. I don't know, but Chicago got 2 empty netters, so it was really like 3-2. But that's fucking embarrassing. That is the laughingstock of hockey right now. That is the laughingstock of hockey. This veteran team in Pittsburgh, yeah, they're older. But you lose to the Chicago Blackhawks, who are so clearly tanking, it is not even funny. I'm not saying the players are tanking. Management is tanking so badly for that number 1 pick. And then you lose. But Pittsburgh still has a chance to get into that second wild card spot. So both of these 2 teams in the Islanders and Penguins have 1 game remaining on their schedule. The Islanders play tonight versus Montreal. They win, they're in. If Pittsburgh, what Pittsburgh needs to get into the playoffs is a win over the Blue Jackets on Thursday night, and the Islanders to lose tonight to the Montreal Canadiens. Do I think that'll happen? There's a chance, but no, I don't think that'll happen whatsoever. Now, what would I prefer to see happen just in the scope of hockey playoffs? I would love if the Panthers got that second wild card spot, because then they would play the Bruins. The Islanders and Penguins have no chance versus the Boston Bruins, which we'll talk about more for making even more history. They have no shot. The Panthers have a shot. I forgot to mention this during the Toronto-Florida thing. Alex Lyon, or Leon, however you say his name, the goaltender the last 10 games, had a fantastic showing versus Toronto. He played out of his fucking mind, giving up the game-winning goal to John Tavares in a one-on-one situation. It wasn't like a lucky goal. It was, oh my gosh, dude, he is so good right now. Florida is the only team of the teams that's on the screen right now that has a singular chance to take Boston to 6 games. Islanders don't. Pittsburgh doesn't. But I would love to see Panthers get that second wild card spot. Beyond that, I would like to see Pittsburgh get in. I don't think they can get the first wild card spot, so I can't have both. But I want to see Sidney Crosby, Malkin, just the older core. I'd like to see them back in it. That'd be kind of fun. But yeah, because the Islanders, they have Ilya Sorokin, and the rest is kind of boring. But yeah, the end is near. Pittsburgh will need a New York loss tonight and a win tomorrow night. As the Islanders, it's as simple as win and you're in, as Florida is in. Moving forward, Boston Bruins, I was just talking about them. They now have, with their win last night over Washington, they now have the all-time regular season wins and points record at 133, beating the 1976-77 Montreal Canadiens. Highly impressive, obviously. They continue to do just incredible shit. Boston, Panthers are the only team that has a chance to take them to 6, and of that wild card race. And then Boston will have to play the winner of Tampa, Toronto. Whoever that is, they're running into a brick fucking wall. Moving forward, the Western Conference wild card race since the last show on Monday has officially wrapped up. Winnipeg is in at 95 points. Calgary is out as they lost in the shootout for their 17th overtime loss in this season. That is a league high. 17 overtime losses. But yeah, they would end up losing in the shootout to the Nashville Predators, also listed on this screen. And that would knock Calgary out of the race. Nashville needed 2 wins and Winnipeg to lose twice in regulation. That would not happen as the Jets got a 3-1 win over Minnesota last night. And yeah, I got to give more credit to Jose Saros, the goalie for the Predators. In his last 3 games, he has a .965. He had 42 saves versus Calgary. I mean, what a run Nashville had. They played very inspired, and it only took a 2-game losing streak for Calgary to officially be knocked out. Winnipeg is in for like the 6th of 7th years or something like that. But yeah, that is it for the Western Conference Wild Card race. It was a little boring for a long time there, but then you saw Calgary heating up, flaming up. Am I right? God, that was terrible. And then you see Nashville, but Winnipeg pulled away there at the end, as the Western Conference playoff picture should be set. Except Kraken Kings, maybe you could see some movement there, but yeah, the playoff picture is mostly set in the Western Conference. Talking about some heavy Western Conference games, we got the Oilers playing the Avalanche last night. Definitely not trying to make this look. I'm gonna just leave it. Oilers playing the Avalanche last night. I thought this game would be high scoring. This was the 9:30 game on ESPN last night. I was so excited for it, and it looked like it was going to be high scoring with 2 goals scored in the first 6 minutes. With even Colorado's goal, it wasn't even by a Colorado player. It bounced off of 2 Edmonton defenders and then into the net. That's hilarious. But then, third period, still no more goals scored, tied up from at 1-1. According to naturalstattrick.com, which is an advanced hockey site, Avalanche had 9 power play scoring chances in the third period. None would convert, as then in the overtime period, Evan Bouchard would get the power play overtime goal to extend the Oilers' winning streak to 8 and their point streak to 14. Speaking of point streaks from a player standpoint, Connor McDavid had an assist on that overtime goal, and his point streak is at 15 games, as he has had 28 points over his last 15 games. Just an unreal season being wrapped up by Connor McDavid right now. Wild shit. As all 3 of the Colorado Avalanche versus Oilers games this season have actually gone to overtime. The Western Conference Finals from last season, I'd be down to see it one more time. I would be down to see these 2 teams run it back in the Western Conference Finals, as last year Colorado swept them. This year, probably would be a different story with Connor McDavid just doing whatever the fuck he's doing wild stuff. As the Oilers are still second in the Pacific Division because of this game. The Golden Knights would beat the Kraken 4-1 to stay 2 points in front of Edmonton at 109. Seattle has a 5-game winning streak ended with this game, as Vegas, with their goalie Laurent Brossoit, I butchered that, but their main goalie returned March 25th. He had a few shaky games coming back, but now he's on a 4-game winning streak with a .940 save percentage this month, as during this 4-1 victory, Michael Amadio got his 15th and 16th goals on the season, obviously scoring 2 on the night, as the Kraken and Golden Knights will rematch on Thursday night for their final head-to-head game of the season on ESPN. I think that's the 9:30 game on Thursday night. Very excited for it, as Kraken remain in the first wild card spot. That light just went off. Moving forward to the Connor Bedard watch. This broke my heart. The Connor Bedard watch is officially over. The season is over. In Game 7, let me swap these lights. In Game 7, the Regina Pats, the team Connor Bedard, the number 1 pick in this year's draft, is on, would lose Game 7 to the Saskatoon Blades, as Connor McDavid would put up 1 assist during the game, but that 1 assist led to the only goal for the team, as the final score was 4-1. As you can see on the screen, if you cannot understand my abbreviations, he had 10 goals and 10 assists during those 7 games. Absolutely unreal shit from the number 1 pick in this year's draft, doing pretty absurd things. Moving forward to the lottery odds, the updated lottery odds, we saw a change in that 2 and 3 spot. Columbus remains number 1, as they would lose last night to the Flyers in overtime. I believe that's 7 straight losses for Columbus. Anaheim officially jumped to those number 2 odd spot, because Chicago won last night and they fell to number 3. Obviously, the players don't care. about this shit. Their season is wrapping up. I assume they want to get some wins. But from a management perspective, that's heartbreaking for Chicago and fantastic for Columbus and the Anaheim Ducks, as Connor Bedard is officially moving into the offseason and going into the pros. That is going to do it for me today. This was the second run. The first run was bad. This one was far better. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Very loose, just trying to get better at this. That's all this is about, just getting better. And yeah, hope I do